it's safe to say that the PlayStation 5 had a bit of a rocky start to begin with in 2020, with things like the pandemic, with the chip shortages really not helping. We had quite a limbo period for this generation at the start of it, with obviously lots of cross-generational games. Some would argue that the period lasted longer than it usually does, but I would argue it didn't. I mean, to this day, we're still getting somewhat AAA games on the PlayStation 4. Less so on the Xbox One these days, but the new Yakuza remake, Kiwami 3, coming out on the PS4 this month, not this month, the next month at the time of recording this. But it's been an interesting generation so far. A generation it's far from over by all means. It's still going, but I feel it's going to be going on for another, I don't know, probably another 5 years, like into the 2030s, because honestly, they haven't really done much with this console. Because it's just it still feels like they're still catering to the lowest common denominator in terms of hardware with PlayStation 4, whereas I feel that we've only just started to get games where like, yeah, that can't run on a PS4, oh, it's only for PlayStation 5, that sort of thing, or that current generation, as it were, as though because we're like, what, 6 years into it at this point, or nearly 6 years this year at this point, and we're only just starting to get that. Some would argue that it's kind of like similar to the PS3 to the PS4 generation. I would argue it's not, because within like a year and a half of the PS4/Xbox One generation, we got games that weren't cross-gen, they weren't like available on the Xbox 360 and PS3, and you could argue because of that, it's because of the hardware of the Xbox 360 and the PS3 at that point were pretty much powder. They were only on like 500 odd megabytes or 200 megabytes of RAM with the PS3 because it was split into two. I've gone into that on my PS3 video, I believe. But this generation, I think we've hit a bit of a brick wall in terms of visuals. There's only so far you could push how realistic something can be on the PS5 or the current generation of hardware. Whereas the PS4, I feel like we've gone as far as we can, and I feel like we can't stretch that much further. With the exception, we could stretch it with mechanics, scope of the world, that sort of thing. And you're probably wondering what this rambling has to do with this video. It's about me with the PS5 so far, me talking about the PS5 as a piece of hardware and my experience with it. Because me and my partner, we got one together, and we've only had it since late 2024. And I feel like that was a good time to get a PlayStation 5, because that's when the games were coming out, honestly. You had obviously you had games like Dragon's Dogma 2 come out in 2024, which was one of my favorites, which I played on the Series S originally, but I want to get a copy of that on PS5 at some point. But 2025, I felt, was the era where the year where games were starting to trickle down onto the PS5 that were only capable on that piece of hardware, or the current generation of hardware. When I say that, I mean like Xbox Series X, etc., and all that sort of thing, not the Switch 2, before any of you say. But yeah, we had games like Death Stranding 2. I mean, even like Assassin's Creed Shadows, as much as people didn't like it, probably wouldn't have worked on the PlayStation 4, even though it did come out on the Switch 2 eventually. That sort of thing. And I was fully prepared to play Grand Theft Auto 6 last year, but we all knew how that went. Not great. But hopefully it comes out this year at the time of recording this, in 2026. But PS5, I like it as a console. Was it a worthwhile investment if, say, you bought it in 2020? No. But I think even if you're an enthusiast, I think the golden rule of any video game console is to wait a few years. It's always pretty, I don't want to say stupid, but probably, well, let's just call it stupid. Stupid to buy a console day one, because I can't think of any other words, if I'm going to be honest, because there's always going to be a lack of games. They're all going to be cross-generational. They're not going to be games that are going to be taking the piece of hardware to its full capabilities. There's always going to be some growing pains, that sort of thing. And I feel like 2, 3 years, even 4 years in, like we got one to get a PS5 was that sort of sweet spot, because there were plenty of games. And yeah, we do use the PS5 to play a lot of PlayStation 4 games, because I mean, it's nice to play games from that generation where it doesn't sound like your console's about to take off to fly on the other side of the world like a jet engine, because the PS4, even though we have a PS4 Pro tucked away somewhere in this flat, I'm looking around to try to see where it is, but I just remembered it's in a drawer space under our bed. But yeah, the PS4 Pro even struggled a bit with some intense games. It's just nice to play games from the 8th gen on PS5 to have better performance and not to have the loud fan problem. I mean, I've got it on now and it's like next to me, to my head, to my left here, and I can barely hear it because I keep it clean, of course. But anyway, let's go to the PS5. Kind of like my experience as a whole, go over the hardware, that sort of thing, like I do with these sort of videos. Show you the games I've got so far physically. You can kind of see in the background of the shelf. And yeah, let's get into it, shall we? So the PlayStation 5 came out during the pandemic in 2020, and I think a lot of game companies during that period were rubbing their hands together, thinking like, "Oh wow, everyone's stuck indoors, so we have like the monopoly of like making money in terms of like activities because you couldn't go outside, that sort of thing." But unfortunately, when the PS5 and then the Series X, not so much for the Series S, came out, there were shortages. There were people online scalping them that were using AI bots to take all the PS5s from the stores. There were chip shortages too, which caused a pretty significant shortage for about 1 to 2 years. I'd say about 2.5 years. Let's just say that. I think it was about 2.5 years, where you just couldn't buy one because of all the shortages. Because it was just hard to get one because everyone wanted one, and just the shortages in general, the chip shortages, that sort of thing. And that's why we had quite a significant cross-gen period. I can't speak today. I don't know what's wrong with me. There was a significant cross-gen period where we had lots of games go out on PlayStation 4, including quite some big sort of exclusive games like Forza Horizon 5, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, Gran Turismo 7. There's probably a few more, but it was highly unusual to have those sort of games being cross-gen. I mean, there were a few cross-gen games on PS4, PS3 that were exclusive back in the day, like Forza Horizon 2, Little Big Planet 3 were two that come to my mind, but they weren't as abundant as they were during this period because basically Sony and Microsoft were like, "Oh bugger, we can't just release these games on the current well, it is current gen, the current gen systems because we won't make our profit back. So we need to downsize these games, scale them back a bit in order for them to work on 2013 pieces of tech." And for better or worse, some people would say these games didn't reach their full potential because of this period. I mean, I bought, looking on the shelf there, I've bought a couple of those games on PlayStation 4, Xbox One. I mean, I bought Halo Infinite and played on my Xbox One, my old VCR 2013 model, which it wasn't a great experience. I mean, it was quite low res. It ran at 30 FPS, which doesn't bother me usually, but I've been quite used to playing Halo at 60 FPS during that period. God of War Ragnarok was fine on PS4, that was good. Horizon Forbidden West, what I played on PS4 was better, but I left that because I knew we were getting a PlayStation 5 later that year when I bought that game. So it was an odd period. It's not going on now because obviously there are more people playing on PlayStation 5 than there are on PS4 now. But as a piece of hardware, in terms of its like overall aesthetic, I don't like it. It's probably going to really annoy some people, but I really don't like the look of the PlayStation 5. I love playing it as a piece of hardware, absolutely fantastic. But in terms of aesthetics, it's overly designed, and I do not like it. It's like if they took a internet router and they strapped a ring binder folder around it. That's what it looks like to me. Some people say it looks futuristic and cool and different. Yeah, it looks different. That's definitely a description for the look of the PlayStation 5. But overall, I just think it's overly designed. It's big, but it's purposely big in order to keep the console silent, so it's got plenty of circulation. And the same with the Series X. We don't have a Series X, we've got Series S down here. I'm pointing down here. You can't see. But yeah, the overall look of the PlayStation 5, I just don't like it. I think it's just a horrendous looking console. And it's sort of like, you probably could say it's like Picasso-esque with its look because it's abstract, it looks weird, that sort of thing. But what I've always liked with Sony's consoles, in terms of the PlayStation, is that they've always had like a sort of a monolithic building look to them. Since the PS2, they look like they could be turned into buildings or skyscrapers, like with the beautiful looking model of the original PlayStation 4, which I absolutely love. It's almost like a something you'd see in like a stone circle, like Stonehenge, that sort of thing, with how it's designed. But the PS5, I'm not even sure what they were going with the design, if I'm being totally honest. it seems completely overly designed, and you might crucify me for saying that, but it's just my humble opinion. But what they did get right, if I can find it, I'm looking around where it is the controller, the DualSense 5. I almost said DualSense 4, which would have been completely wrong. Easily the best controller Sony have made. If you've watched my PlayStation 3 controller, you would know I'm not the biggest fan of Sony's controllers, especially the PlayStation 3. I grew up playing Xbox. Sorry, I had to adjust my glasses. I grew up playing Xbox mostly in my teenage years on the 360. I jumped to PlayStation around the PS4, even though I had an Xbox One during that period. But the PS4 controller was pretty good. Still a bit too light and thin for my liking because I've got quite big hands. They got it right with the DualSense 5. It's quite bulky, but not too bulky. They don't stray away from the design of the DualShock controller with the PlayStation. I've got two white ones here. Yeah, but the only sort of like caveat with this console, we've not experienced it personally, is stick drift with the console, and I've just changed the background there because I realised this controller is on. Stick drift is the biggest problem with this controller. We haven't experienced it personally, but we know plenty of people online through Instagram, that sort of thing, who've gone through a few controllers. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because some people just don't take care of their controllers properly. We clean our controllers quite consistently, but then again, we've got stick drift with our Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons in the past, so it's just clearly a flawed design with the sticks because they obviously don't have Hall effect sticks with the controllers, which is unfortunate because I've never really had any problems with like previous PlayStation controllers with stick drift, that sort of thing. Same with like Xbox. I've never had stick drift with their controllers in the past, not even the Series S at the moment. But it's just a bit of a pain in the ass because it's a shame because the DualSense is just a really well designed controller. Not too dissimilar to the design of the PS4 DualShock 4. It's basically the same but bulkier with some additions with the haptic feedback controllers, which I quite like in certain games, especially when you're playing FPS games where you'd aim down sight, and before you pull like the trigger, I'm using the wrong trigger here, but you'll know what I mean. It gets tighter as you're about to pull the trigger, and it's really nice. Or in the case when I played Sniper Elite Resistance last year, to like aim hip fire with the sniper rifle, you pull the trigger halfway. And what I like with the DualSense is that it snaps halfway for you already, so you can just lock it in, so you're not kind of having to meander. It snaps it for you, which is really nice in certain games. And of course, it's got the motion controls, that sort of thing, which I experienced recently in Ghost of Yotei. And of course, they've still got the touchpad here on the controller, which is nice. It's just a very well designed and a good looking controller compared to the console itself. I'm pointing that way because it's there on the perch. The console's just a bit of a weird anomaly in terms of its design, the main unit, and I just don't know why. But the console we got, it's a terabyte, and by the time you install the OS and that sort of thing, it has like 800 odd gigs. But we did recently get a SSD expansion cart thing to put into the console. Very easy to install. You just pop the panel off to the back, drill the little panel off. It's about this big, the panel that's on the inside. There's a little screw. You put the screw in place depending how long the SSD is. Make sure if you're putting the SSD in, it has a heatsink built in, or you put the heatsink on yourself. Just do a bit of research. It's not difficult because when you buy these expansion SSD ports, they'll say with heatsink or not. So it's quite easy. It's quite user friendly. If you're not that tech savvy, it's not that difficult to install them either. I bought a terabyte, and it is just a terabyte. It doesn't take anything away from like OS or installations, that sort of thing. It's a full terabyte when you whack it in. So that's nice. And it's more than enough than what we need with this system. As I've said before in my intro, the PlayStation 5 just runs exceedingly quiet compared to the PS4 and even the PS3 and the PS2. Because even though the power supply is built in, I keep pointing that way, even though the PS5 is not in shot. I'm sure if I can remember, I'll put some B-roll in. Even though the power supply is built in, it's very quiet. It's quite bulky, so it has enough circulation to ventilate heat out of its fans, which are like down the sides where the panels cover it up, but there's enough gap for the heat to get out. Very quiet, and just overall just really nice to use. The UI is kind of the same here with from the PlayStation 4, a bit more nuanced and just cleaner to use and just easier to use and not as slow. Same goes for the PlayStation Store, not slow at all. And yeah, that's enough me waxing lyrical about the hardware, that sort of thing. and I'll show you some games next that I've got for the PS5 physically that we got over the past 2 years, me and my partner. Okay, here's some games here that I've got physically. I've got a pile here. They're in alphabetical order because that's how I took them off the shelf. They're not in order of like quality, that sort of thing. And we're starting off with a really good one here actually, and that's Astrobot. Astrobot is just a phenomenal game. If you're a fan of like old school platformers from that era, like PS1, um, and as well as like sort of Mario, sort of like Sunshine Galaxy, it takes elements from all that. It's just wonderful. And if you're a hardcore PlayStation fan with all the sort of references, brilliant, a must-have for any PS5 owner. Beautiful visuals, charming personality, and just like such a love and respect for history of PlayStation. Just fantastic. You just have to get it. It's just so good. Up next is a game my partner bought. Sort of more casual game, Coffee Talk 1 and 2. I haven't played this myself, but I watched her play it in the some rainy afternoons. It's it's quite an interesting game where you have to kind of you have to learn about your customers and like make coffee specific to their needs or what they want at that time, or come up with like new recipes, that sort of thing. It's quite an interesting concept. It's like a good visual novel game if you're into those, with a really beautiful pixel art style where it's set in like the sort of modern day, but you have fantasy sort of creatures and like entities in this world. It's just really cool and interesting, and not my sort of game, but I can appreciate art where it's due. Up next is Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII. I haven't played this yet. I'm actually working my way through Final Fantasy VII Remake as I'm making this video. This is up next before I get to Rebirth, which I don't own yet. I played a bit of Crisis Core on the PSP back in the day. It's really good. Really good what I played on the PSP, but what I've seen of the remake of this, it looks really nice and really cool. And just seeing more about the character Zack in the background is really cool, and I can't wait to get to it. This one is a bit of an interesting game, published by Bethesda, made by Arcane Leon, rest in peace. Deathloop. Deathloop is quite a cool first-person shooter, kind of like rogue-like sort of game where you die, you start again. It plays out a bit differently. Pretty cool, pretty interesting. I need to play a bit more of it. I played about 2 to 4 hours of it. Other games got into my pile before when I bought this. It was like £8. So I like first-person shooters. The shooting's quite good. The art style's fairly arcane sort of style with like the sort of oil painting coming to life with the art style. Yeah, really cool idea. I just need to go back to it and play it more in depth. Another one is a platformer, Disney Illusion Island. I haven't played this. This was a game that my partner picked up. She loves it. I've watched her play it. It looks really cool. I would like to play it at some point. They're like 2D platformer, Disney animation, that sort of thing. Really, really, really cool. This beautiful Metroidvania style of game. It came out on the Switch exclusively originally, but they did eventually release it on PlayStation 5 and Xbox consoles. And I just love the old school. It's got an old school vibe of Disney in terms of its animation. I just love it. What is this? Dying Light 2. I really like this game. This game gets quite a lot of flack. I personally think it's quite good. Is it as good as the first one? No, it's not. But in terms of it just being a decent zombie survival open world game, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's, as I said, is it good as the first one? No. The sticking point for a lot of people when they first brought this out was that there weren't any guns in the single player, and yeah, fair enough. But they focused on the melee and the parkour a lot more. The parkour is a lot better in this game compared to the first, by the way. But a largely enjoyable game. I need to go back to it, and I will pick up the Beast at some point. A Ubisoft game. I know people don't like Ubisoft games. Sorry, but I quite enjoyed this one. Sue me. Far Cry 6. I know it's considered like the weakest game in the franchise, but I just enjoyed it. Sorry, Far Cry games are just fast food fun, as they're put sometimes, just quick and dirty, over the top and fun, and it's just fun. And I only paid a tenner for this, so it's not too bad. This one is a quite notorious one on the internet the past few years. I bought it because it was quite cheap, and I heard the gameplay is alright. The story and the dialogue apparently is pretty, to put it plainly, naff of what I've heard. But Forspoken, yeah, I know, I can hear you not laughing from here, but yeah, I bought it for like, was it £8 on Amazon, brand new. I've seen the gameplay. The gameplay looks pretty fun. What I've seen of the dialogue and the story, it looks pretty horrendous. But I can tolerate pretty bad stories if the gameplay is alright, as long as the gameplay is more than the story. So yeah. Another one that people weren't particularly keen about was Gotham Knights. I played this on Game Pass back in the day. I quite enjoyed it. Picked it up for very cheap because I wanted it physically. I quite enjoyed the game. Is it anything remarkable or innovative? Not really, but it's quite a fun game. Open world sort of game set in the Batman universe, and it's quite good of what I played. Here's what I finished recently, and quite a bona fide classic, I would say, on the PS5, and that's Ghost of Yotei, a game I would probably not going to talk too much about here because I want to do more an in-depth video on a later date. Yeah, I really like it. I think it's better than the first game. Sorry, I think it's better than the first game. I know that's going to stir a lot of people up, but yeah, the combat's better. The visuals are great. The story, I think, is much better than the first game. It's more personal. It's more in depth. You get more time with the main character Atsu, that sort of thing. And I like how they swapped out the stance system for just weapons instead. It makes it less confusing of what stance you have to use against certain weapons, where you've got different weapons. They give you quite an in-depth tutorial on each of the weapons, which is great. And I just love it. It's great. Another one that I finished recently, it was quite a quick one. Quite an underrated game, published by Bethesda, again, Ghostwire Tokyo. Yeah, I highly recommend this if you've got a PS5. It is a great game. Set in Tokyo, where a particular event happened where all the souls in Tokyo have been taken by demons and all that. It's basically a first-person shooter, but with magic, that sort of thing. It's really unique. Something that I haven't seen in a while. Kind of like if you took like Hexen from back in the day and made it more modern. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really good, great visuals, sort of good use of liminal spaces, made by Tango Gameworks, who made the Evil Within series. I remember people were kind of a bit surprised with the direction they were going to go with this game, because there was the assumption that it was going to be a horror game, and I get that assumption because beforehand all they have made was the Evil Within. But it's a great, unique game, super cheap these days, highly recommend it. What else we got here? Oh, this is an interesting one that I've yet to play, and that's Kena Bridge of Spirits. Kenna, I don't know. Yeah, it looks really interesting. It's got sort of Pixar-like art style, picked up for fairly cheap, and I haven't played it yet. Oops. A Lego game. This is one that my partner picked up, and she loves the Lego game. She loves this basically 100%ing it. That's Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. Sorry, there's so many of these sort of games. Yeah, it's a Lego game. You collect stuff. You basically do it until your eyes bleed in terms of 100%ing it. And yeah, I don't mind them, but they're not my sort of go-to games. This one I beat last year. I bought it last year and I quite enjoyed it. A lot of people kind of were like about it, but Mafia The Old Country, I really liked it. If you know, I did a video about it here on YouTube. I'll link it below if I remember. I think what the problem was with this game is that people were thinking it was going to be like a massive open world game, and that's just not what Mafia games are about, really. They're quite concise, simple stories. They're not meant to be like a Grand Theft Auto game, and that was the problem with Mafia 3, was that it was trying to be a Grand Theft Auto game, and it went back. This was like kind of like a soft reboot of the series, because they did the remake of the first one back in 2020, and they went quiet for quite a few years, and came out with this set in the early 20th century in Sicily. I really like the art style. I like the story. It's typical mafioso stuff, but to be honest, I think it was fine. Here's one that is quite interesting across the internet. It's Power Wash It Simulator. Not my sort of game. Again, this is a game that my partner bought and she really liked. I think she ended up putting like 52 odd hours into this game. I can understand the appeal of it, because you can just turn it on, play it, and just put some music on, because that's what she does a lot of the time. She puts her headphones on, listens to music, and just powers through a job in this game. And I understand the appeal, the relaxing appeal of it, but me personally, it's not one of those games I would go, oh yeah, I'm going to play Power Wash Simulator today. Up next is an exclusive again for the PlayStation 5, also on PC. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I beat this back in early December. Yeah, it's a really good game. 15 quid paid for this. Great sort of shooter platformer. Ratchet & Clank's been going on since early 2000s, and it's crazy how many of these games that Insomniac games have cranked out, and they're still making them. That's the other thing. Unlike Naughty Dog, you don't want to make a Jack and Daxter or that sort of thing. Beautifully done in terms of visuals. Really funny too. There were a few times where I was laughing in this game, which is not often with comedy games. But yeah, just beautiful in terms of visuals. Up next is Sackboy. It's Sackboy: The Big Adventure. A Big Adventure, sorry. A character that Sony seem to have abandoned recently, and they don't really want to go back to him, because I love the Little Big Planet games. I haven't played this yet. Me and my partner plan on playing this together in 2-player. I love the Little Big Planet games. I finished the PSP one last year, and I loved it. We've basically got all of them now. We've got 1 to 3. We've got the PSP one, not the Vita one because we don't have a Vita. But yeah, this looks really lovely, to put it plainly. A remake, a quite good remake, I bought last summer for about £30 from Smiths because it was on sale, and that is the Silent Hill 2 remake. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Again, I would like to do a video about this game. Don't know when, because I'd have to replay it. But just amazing, this game. It captures the atmosphere of the original beautifully. The visuals, incredible. The voice acting, incredible. The combat, pretty good. And just really tense and scary, this game. Absolutely loved it from start to finish. My partner enjoyed watching it with me. She's not a horror game fan, but she loves watching me play them, bizarrely. And she loved it too, the story. She really loved it, helping me solve the puzzles too. It's just fantastic. Last two here, Spider-Man games. Miles Morales, great. More of an expansion to the first one, to be honest, because it's set in quite a smaller map. It's not as long as the first game, the 2018 game. Still really good. I like it that it's set in Christmas. You've got a snowy New York. Playing as Miles Morales is great too, with the different powers, the electricity powers you get to use, and that sort of thing. And of course, we have Spider-Man 2. Really like it. I like being able to swap between Miles Morales and Peter Parker. The Venom suit's a lot of fun to use. The brief moment where you play as Venom in the game is also fantastic. And yeah, people give this game a lot of crap. They're saying it's just DLC, which is just not true at all, really. You've got expanded open world of New York. You've got different power set, different story. It just controls differently. Looks better than the first one too. Yeah, it's beautiful. It plays well. The combat's tighter than the first one. And I just really like the story. I know some people didn't, but I personally did. So, hey ho. Yeah, that's all the physical games, and yeah, we'll draw our conclusions in a minute. So the PS5, is it a worthwhile pickup these days? Yeah, I'd say so, if you've got the money, because every console seems to have gone up in price at the moment because of various political reasons and whatnot, and economic reasons. But yeah, I would say it's a pretty good console to pick up. Not only do you have pretty decent wealth of games to play that are current gen, but you've also got a backlog of PlayStation 4 games that run better on the system, that have like an FPS boost feature, like Red Dead Redemption. Recently Ubisoft updated the Far Cry games, Free, Blood Dragon, and Primal. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's all sorts of like previous gen games that got a 60 FPS update. If you're looking for a sort of list, there are various lists online that tell you which ones do and which ones don't, that sort of thing. Even if they don't like have like an FPS boost and they just run at 30, they just run better in general on this system. But yeah, the PS5, I would say it's probably a worthwhile upgrade now, because there are games coming out on it specifically, and not just Grand Theft Auto 6. That's coming out this year. So, well, hopefully coming out this year. I'll eat my words if it gets delayed again this year, I'll tell you that. But yeah, there are lots of decent games on it now. A lot of them are quite cheap too. You can even just hold off on the newer games these days. And just a wealth of like indie games, but even though a lot of the indie games are still coming out on PlayStation 4. But I'd say you only upgrade to it if you really want to play like the newest and greatest. And I know that's kind of like a useless thing to say, because it's kind of like, well, duh. But yeah, the PS5, yeah, I love the system. I think it's quite great. We've gotten a decent amount out of it so far. We bought our second hand, to be honest. We didn't even bother buying it brand new, because we had like loads of like CEX voucher to buy the PS5 with, which is great. Great way if you want to save some money, if you've got some pretty expensive games lying about you don't play anymore, just trade them in and just get a PS5 or a Series X or the current gen console of your choosing. But love the PS5. Few niggles here, like with the controller, with the stick drift, that sort of thing. But overall, a great system. And thank you again for tuning in to one of my hardware rambles, me showing off different games. And I will see you all in the next one. Hit all the buttons, like and subscribe, that all sort of nonsense. And I'll see you later. See you later. Bye.